Hi, Jeremy.
Hi, good afternoon. How's
Good
it going?
afternoon. Good. I'm good. I'm excited for everyone to be here. So while I wait for some more people to join, if you all want to just put in your idea for because I know, Jeremy, you haven't launched your podcast yet, but if you want to put in your idea or the name of your podcast, or even your Instagram, that way we can all connect with each other and, grow the podcast community, because that's really my goal for this webinar and also just my business as a whole, Espresso Podcast Production. Then we'll get started in just a minute. Hi, Audrey. Hi, Jessica. So I sent everyone some worksheets before the event started with the link. If you have a second to print those out or pull those up, that would be great. Hi, Julie. That would be great because we're going to go through that as we go through this webinar. And then you can always stop me whenever you have questions, put them in the chat, and I will be sure to answer those. Like I said, very interactive. So I'm excited that you're all here live. Perfect. So some more people are going to start joining, but to be conscious of your time, let's just get started.
So Hayleigh, where would I find those worksheets? I'm in my email as well.
So I attached them to the email you received with the link.
Let me go.
And if you can't find them, it's no problem. I put them in,
found it
here as well.
Found it. Awesome. Thank you.
Awesome. Of course. Perfect. So welcome to the How to Finish Your Podcast Marketing in One Day webinar. My name is Hayleigh Hayhurst. I am the owner of Espresso Podcast Production, a full-service podcast agency specializing in editing, marketing, and strategy. I'm a podcast producer and strategist, so I help business owners and entrepreneurs increase their visibility and profits through podcasting and marketing strategies. Over this year alone, 2021, I guess so last year, I have helped over 200 podcasters build the bridge to scale their podcast organically. I excel in strategizing podcasts to make you money and get you visible, because as a podcaster, that's what you're looking for. You want listeners, you want people to listen, you want your audience to engage with you, and that all comes down to marketing, which we'll talk about. But I want you to listen to, as you go through this webinar with me, if you have any questions, let me know in the chat box. But podcast platforms are not very searchable. If you think like Spotify or Apple Podcasts, it's not the most searchable place, because if you look up a business podcast, thousands will show up. If you look up a health and wellness podcast, thousands will show up. So I want everyone to put their industry in here, but more than likely, there's a bunch of other podcasts in your industry. So what you need to do is have that marketing strategy so you can actually be seen on outside of podcast platforms so people can find your podcast. So why are you here today? What do you need today? What do you want to learn? What have you tried before for marketing? Is it working? Is it not working? And why haven't you achieved your goals? Are you not sure how to? Are you not putting in the right efforts? And I notice how I said right effort, because a lot of us put in a lot of effort for our podcasts, but sometimes it just doesn't pay off, right? We're not seeing the listeners we want. We're not seeing the results we want on social media, and it can be really frustrating. So put in the chat why you're here today, and so I could get to know a little more about you, your podcast, and your goals. So Julie, you're a coach and storytelling. That's awesome. Search for serotonin, Carolyn. I love that name. Perfect. So as I go just keep putting stuff in the chat, and then it will be very engaging, very interactive. So Julie, you want to eventually monetize? That's perfect. We're going to talk about that later in this webinar. You started as a fun thing, but now you're really seeing the vision and want to grow a large audience. I love that. That's such an amazing goal. Heather, you don't know what realistic goals are set for your podcast platform. Heather, you have a great podcast. I was actually on Heather's podcast. And so hopefully the marketing side of this will really help you, build the Instagram, build the Facebook that you're looking for. Jessica, yours is for kids, storytelling and conversations for difficult times, and not sure how to gain an audience. Okay, good to know, because we'll be talking a lot about content today. And then Amanda, you're looking for a social media strategy for podcast. Perfect. So here's our first worksheet. This is where you are going to put in the chat box. So what makes your podcast stand out from the competition? So I know you all have different industries, but what makes you stand out from other podcasts in your industry? You can also unmute yourself if you would like. So Julie, completely raw, vulnerable, and difficult conversations. Audrey, you're not sure. Okay. What message are you trying to get across to your audience? And then lastly, who is your target audience? Heather, you have a wide variety of topics, guests, and experts, all linked to one theme, confidence. That's perfect. Jessica, you write and illustrate and record your own stories. Oh, no problem for muting. I hope you feel better. Erica, hey Erica. I'm excited that you're here too. Perfect. So for those of you who are not sure what makes your podcast stand out from the competition, I really want you to reflect. And like Heather's podcast is about confidence, I want you to be confident, because you are what makes your podcast stand out from the competition. You are what makes it different than any other podcast in your same industry. People come to you because they like the way that you talk. They like the stories that you tell. They like what you share. They like the knowledge you have. A lot of us get that imposter syndrome, or we're too nervous to actually share our voice. But you should be confident. If you started a podcast, go you. If you want to start a podcast, go you. It's impressive, and you need to take advantage of that and be confident for your audience, because they're investing time into you. We'll talk a little bit more about target audience later on, but I want you to start thinking about it. So when we get to that part, we can get really specific on who your audience is. So Erica, she's going back and forth if she wants to tailor it to military veterans or if she wants to make it about her coaching program. So hopefully this webinar gives you some clarity on who you should tailor your podcast to. Courtney, candid conversations about self-care, self-love, healthy living, all of that. Perfect. And then Amanda, messages there is more to be productive beyond traditional advice, tips, tricks, and hacks. Awesome. So the first thing I want to go over with you today is building your credibility. These are some of my beautiful, amazing clients who I love working with. All of them are building their business and their confidence and credibility through their podcast. Like Kelsey with the Find Your Magic podcast. She's a copywriter. She's using her podcast as a creative outlet, but also she's using it as a way to meet new people, get clients. Same with all of the other podcasts that I work with. We have a strategy for each of them, and that strategy is different for all these podcasts you're seeing. I help them build their strategy. It's different, but the goals are the same. So to build your credibility, when someone commits 30 to 60 minutes of their time into your podcast, they are looking to do a couple of things, such as learn, invest their time in you, find entertainment, and be inspired. So this is different for each podcast, but these are really the main ones. And like I said, be confident because they're coming to you because you're knowledgeable, informed, and an expert. Think about the podcast that you listen to. If you like tuned into a podcast and they weren't very confident. They were like, oh, maybe I'm not the best person to listen to, blah, blah, blah. And you were just talking down on yourself. They're going to turn that off because they're going to be like, why would I listen to someone who isn't, knowledgeable on the topic or informed on the topic, whatever it may be. There's a lot of things to think about when you're presenting yourself, because the goal I have for you, and I hope the goal you have for yourself, is that you want to become an expert in your industry. I want you to become an expert in your field, your industry, whatever your industry is. I want you to be the go-to expert. And that's all about building your credibility. Okay, on to our next worksheets. So I'm going to ask these questions, put your answers in the chat, and then we'll go through them. So why should people tune into your podcast week after week? If you have a weekly podcast, why should someone tune in 4 times a month or more or less, depending on how many episodes you have a month? So I will just wait here for a second. And if you're not sure, just let me know, not sure, and we'll talk about that. So Julie, it's always a different guest and alternates with personal stories. And I have some pretty cool guests. That's awesome. My podcast is called Employee to Boss. It's the same thing. I invite like the coolest guests on there, and it's all different topics. And so people can learn different things each week. But if you have a solo podcast, you may be teaching different topics, whatever it may be. Why should people tune in week after week? Julie, that's a great answer. Jessica, original stories for kids that are catalysts for interesting conversations with their parents. I love this because not a lot of podcasts are for kids. So if a family can listen to it together in the car and start those conversations, it's going to be priceless to them, right? They're going to love that. Guest to be free in the world. The most recent one was a victim of sex trafficking. Jeremy, I am also retired from the military, Army here. Empathy is crucial for being a good human and difficult to teach. Our stories will provide that, plus humor, and looking for subjects that have different angles and going to detail that some would not consider. That's awesome. Paige, hey Paige. They have an opportunity to learn from the wide variety of people that take the life lessons. I was just on Paige's podcast yesterday, so that's awesome. Feeling like they're not alone, that's a great topic. I talk with other women of color who give advice on conversations that educate, support, and empower and uplift. Awesome. These are all such good answers, guys. That is another reason why you need to be confident, because you're sharing these stories that are so special to these people's lives. It's like when you watch, when people used to tune into the news every single day. People would invite basically the newscaster into their house. They would sit around the TV and watch it. Now you are that person. People are inviting you onto their car rides. They're inviting you onto their Instagram feeds, their workday, whatever it may be. People are tuning into you because they love what you have to talk about. You're keeping them entertained. And so, do you engage with your audience, and how do you engage with your audience? If you have an answer for this, put it in the comments, and then we will go on to the next part where I teach you a little bit how to engage with your audience, because it's so important. I've been in the podcast industry for a while now. I've had my business for 1.5 years. So I've seen a lot of people do incredible things engaging with their audience. And then I've also seen this huge disconnect of podcasters who put zero effort to actually engage with their audience, and they're confused why their listenership isn't going up. These huge podcasts out there, anyone that you can name that has a huge following, in the beginning, they really, really had to work hard to engage with their audience. It's not going people, necessarily, they will come to you, but they're not going to come to you if they don't know you. And so reaching out to them in the beginning is super important for building that trust and credibility, because then they'll refer to you with, from their friends and all of that. I've been wondering how to actually engage with my audience. So it's a great question to address other than Instagram posts. Perfect. It's hard, guys. It's something that a lot of us struggle with. So building your community, that's the next part of this webinar, because I want you all to include your audience, nurture your audience. These are some examples of, my example, and then some of my clients who this is a simple way to engage with your audience. These quizzes and these polls, this is a simple way on Facebook and Instagram and even Twitter to get your audience starting to talk to you. So for instance, I posted, podcasters, do you like editing? No, most people don't enjoy editing. I personally love editing, but a lot of people don't enjoy editing. And this gets the conversation started, because once they engage with your content, you will keep showing up more and more on the algorithm. That's just how social media works. If they engage with you and they like you, you will show up more in their feed. So this is a great way to just start building your community. From this is what I do, and this is what I coach my clients to do. When someone votes in these polls, go and message them, start the conversation. Maybe they don't even know you have a podcast if you're not posting consistently with a strategy. Maybe you have a business. Let's say you're in the wellness industry, and you're posting a bunch of wellness things, and then here and there you're posting about your podcast. They may not know you have a podcast. And so, figure out what type of things work for you and then start posting those. Like I said, this is a great way to get the conversation starting and see who's actually seeing your results or seeing your posts. So, do you want to monetize, and how much do you want to make? Put this in the chat. There's no wrong answers here, but I want you to be specific. So don't say, I want to make money, or I want to make a lot of money. Tell me how much you actually want to make. And if you're not sure, that's fine. That's fine. Just tell me, I'm not sure yet. I mean, how much money you can make is unlimited, right? You can do so many different things. You can get sponsorships, you could sell your products, you could sell your services, whatever it may be. And if you don't plan on doing it, that's fine. It can give you exposure to your clients. One of my favorite ways to start monetizing is to get those people to follow you on Instagram, Facebook, whatever it may be. And then once you have a service or product to sell, you have them engaged. They trust you because you have your podcast, and then buying from you is a no-brainer. So that's just one way to think about it. Erica, yes, you want to monetize. My best goal is 100K and my better goal is 70K a year. I love that. If you can make 5,000 a month, you'd be happy. Perfect. Awesome. Those are great goals, guys. So to build your income, you first need to build your audience. These are the types of numbers I want to see for each of you. And these are not unobtainable. Like, this may look like a crazy number, 1 month with 75,000 interactions. You can all do that. You can all do that. It just starts off with what you're posting, which we'll go into the content in a minute, but these are numbers I've seen for myself. All of my clients have seen numbers like this. If it's in the green, I love that for you. It's so achievable. It's just this mindset block. If you're thinking like, how do you do that? I will show you, but let me know if you have any like mindset blocks around this that we can talk about. So these analytics are on Instagram. These are all Instagram, but there's also ones for Facebook, Twitter. You need to set up a business account on Instagram to be able to see this. So if you have questions about finding yours, message me after and I will help you do that. But every single month, mine is in the green because I care about my audience. I want to keep them. I engage them and I post things that they want to see. And so same with my clients. I coach them all on this, how to post things that your audience will engage with. So you don't know how to grow or monetize. Okay, so to grow, we're going to talk about the content, and then to monetize, we will talk a little bit about the content as well. So before you monetize, there are some things that you need to achieve. And I know a lot of us going into podcasting want to make money right away. We're like, okay, my 5 episodes are up. Where is my check? There's some things that you need to do first. I wish that was how it worked, but that is unfortunately not how it works. So you need to position yourself as an expert. And by having a podcast, you are an expert in your industry. Think about if you are in the coaching industry, coaches with a podcast that they promote well are going to be looked at highly rather than coaches who maybe, don't have a podcast, aren't really sure, all of those things. And it's totally fine. It's just something that we need to acknowledge. Like, you having a podcast makes you an expert because you can talk about it week after week and teach, right? And so you need to become the go-to person in your niche. Becoming the go-to person means you are having that great call to action at the end of your podcast episodes and posts. If you're not sure what a call to action is, it is when someone says, subscribe to my podcast or message me on Instagram or sign up for my newsletter. That's a call to action. If you have a call to action, put it in the chat. I will look at it. It needs to be very cohesive, clear, and easy. That's the main thing. It needs to be easy because people will do what you want them to do, but you have to tell them exactly how to do it. And you need to tell them that you want them to do it because people don't really go out of the way to do things. So yours is different with each post, depends on what your content is. Yeah, if you have like 2 or 3 just to go back and forth on, that's perfect. You just need to keep reminding them of the same thing because sometimes it'll take them like 4 or 5 times to see it to actually do it, right? I have a client who helps people run ads for their business, and I see her ad ran on Instagram probably like 4 times a week. And I was like, maybe I should run ads. And it got me thinking. She's my client, and it still got me thinking. Every time I saw it, I was like, maybe I should do this. Maybe I should do this. I think the 6th time I saw it, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm just going to do this. And so it takes people a while. Register for the waitlist for the upcoming workshop on the website. Perfect. Leave a review. That's awesome. You can also, once you start that conversation, like I showed you a couple back where you can do the polls, you see who votes in those, and then you can go and ask them for a review once you get the conversation going. So you want to hit a desirable download number consistently. I say consistently because maybe you have a guest who has a huge following and that spikes your download numbers. You need to keep those people. You want it to go up and keep going. You don't want it to go up for that one episode and then back down. So think about what you did in that episode that spiked it and consistently do that. And then you also need to develop your brand voice. Everything should be very cohesive when you're talking about your podcast and your clients and your services. You have a brand voice. It's how you talk. And so if there's a word you use in your vocabulary, so Paige, you had a huge spike for your first episode and it slowly dwindled down. Okay, so we can dive into that. All of you guys, I will message you after with a ticket. You get a one-on-one meeting with me where I'll actually look at your podcast and go through it with you. And so things like that, there's always a reason, and we'll go through that together. And so your brand voice, you need to keep it cohesive and keep people, knowing that it's you. For me, I use the word absolutely all the time. All the time. That is just my word. And so I use that a lot in my brand voice, but I also want my brand to be very professional, but conversational. And so you need to figure out a brand voice that works just for you. So you read short show notes on your app. If it's too long, I'm out and never go to the website for show notes. Perfect. Okay. So this is the fun part. Espresso growth, the 3-step process to massive increase of downloads. Number 1, you need to be consistent with your posting and marketing. Like I said in the beginning, podcast platforms are not always very searchable. And so that's where your marketing comes in. I'm not talking about paid marketing. I'm talking about organic marketing that you enjoy doing. Everything should be fun here. Everything should be fun. The number 2 thing is to do outreach to streamline your audience and find the right listeners. So what I mean by this is when you're first starting your podcast, no one is going to know who you are. So you need to be DMing people. You need to be engaging with their audience using hashtags, which we'll talk about in a second. For instance, I use the hashtag podcasters of Instagram all the time because my ideal audience is podcasters. I go through that hashtag every single day, see who's posting and follow them and, respond to a post or respond to their story. I do this for about 10 minutes every single day. And it's why I'm consistently getting more followers. I get over 100 followers each month since I started. That number can go up, that number can go down, whatever it may be, just keep consistently doing it. Funny, I just used that number today to create excitement for the launch. Or that hashtag today, podcasters of Instagram. That's a great hashtag. Create a bulletproof strategy to nurture your audience and retain your audience. So the strategy is what we're going to talk about in a minute. And then Jeremy, you have a question about brand voice, maybe an example or two. So I can go over that after this with you, or if more of you have questions about brand voice, let me know and I can go a little bit deeper into that. Consistency. So this is where I'm talking about, this is where you will really, really get those followers, downloads, and listeners. So this is crucial. Post your episodes on the same time at the same day every week so people can know when to listen. Use the same fonts, colors, and templates. If you look at my Instagram, Espresso Podcast Production, it's clear when I have a new podcast episode out, when it's an education post, when it's a live, because my colors, fonts, and templates are all cohesive, but I coordinate it with what I'm teaching that day. So keep creating valuable content for your listeners. This is what I really want you guys to think about. When you have a new podcast episode out, I see a lot of podcasters do this. That's the only time they post on Instagram. If you're only posting new episode, why would someone follow you? They can easily subscribe to your podcast and get the same information. You, of course, want to post when you have a new episode out, but you need to be posting between episodes. You could be posting, we'll go into this in a minute, but you could be posting so many things about your episode that's not new episode. It can be a highlight of the guest that you had. It can be an audiogram. It could be a quote card. Whatever it may be, I'll show you in a minute what I do and I have my clients do, but really just create valuable content. You could go deeper into the topic you're talking about. You'll have endless options. Just keep it interesting and keep teaching. And then share expert information on social media. The things that they come and listen to you about is what they want to see on social media. So for instance, Heather, someone wants to learn how to they want to get more confident. Teach them tips on how to get more confident, right? Teach them tips on 3 ways to be more confident today, 3 ways to grow your confidence over the next week. Things like that are what people want to learn. I see your hand raised. Do you have a question? Okay, I'm going to go through these questions really quick. So brand voice, you want to go more over brand voice. That's perfect. So brand voice is, oh, no worries. So brand voice, that is where, let's say, like I said, call to action. That's where you should have the same fonts and colors. Your brand voice is so much more than just words. But as a whole, what vibe do you want to give off on your podcast? I'll give you an example. I talked to this guy a while ago who had a podcast. His Instagram was all so professional. It looked amazing. Everything was so professionally done. It looked great. But when I listened to his podcast, it was just him and his friend talking. And I was like, this is pretty interesting. I don't see a connect here. So we did a podcast audit and I straight up asked him, I was like, these do not match. Like, what do you want your audience to understand? He's like, well, I want it to be fun, laid back. I want it to just be conversational. That's not what his Instagram was showing at all. His brand voice wanted to be conversational, but I think, so he was in the corporate world, and I think he was in his corporate mindset of everything needs to be so professional, needs to look great. And it just wasn't connected at all. So I helped him by telling him, relax on your marketing, relax on what you're posting. Not everything has to be like the most stern photo of you with the most block font and just like the most professional caption. If it's you and your buddy talking about sports, like make it you and your buddy talking about sports, like connect the two things, and it'll be so much better for your audience because they will finally be able to connect with you in a casual way. Of course, there's podcasts out there who need to be super professional, or that's the vibe they want to give. But if you have the most casual conversations where you and your friend are just drinking wine, or you and your guest, whatever it may be, that's who you're going to attract. And that's what you want to be sharing on social media. Does that make sense? You want everything to match. If you have any other questions about that, I can give you another example. But I think his example was great because after he made that change, just like took a deep breath and just relaxed about his marketing, he got a lot more listeners who were actually inclined to talk to him because he looked like someone that they'd want to talk with. So that's just a little bit more about brand voice. That goes into outreach really, because when you are first starting, like I said, no one really knows who you are. So you need to find your listeners, and it's not very searchable. So I saw, Heather, you had a question about the hashtags, which is right here. So let me see. So Heather, you said, so when you go through hashtags and get listeners, do they follow your podcast or your Instagram account? So they follow your Instagram account. And then that's where that call to action and brand voice is super important, because you will be sending them to your podcast. You will be talking about your podcast. You will be educating them. I have a podcast. Go listen, go listen, go listen. And with your follower numbers going up and the right strategy to convert them over to listeners, it will happen. Like, you will convert those people. And so I see them as two in the same. I know that followers do not always equate to listeners, but if you have that strategy to actually, keep them going back and forth, your listeners convert to followers, your followers convert to listeners, you are going to be on the right track. Yes, totally, Jeremy. It's okay to avoid and ignore some social media platforms, which what we're going to get into right here. So what social media platforms are your listeners on? If you have a podcast that you speak to moms about mom life and raising kids, where are they? They're probably on Facebook or Instagram, probably Instagram, because they want to share a bunch of photos of their kids. That's where you'll want to be. If you have a podcast that's about sports and news or something like that, it's very quick paced. It's very quick. You can't really record ahead of time. You're going to want to be on Twitter. Figure out where your listeners are. So page, Instagram, TikTok, Pinterest. TikTok is a good one. Heather, yours are on Facebook and Instagram. I 100% agree. If you're primarily on Facebook, hashtags aren't really super useful, but Instagram and Facebook are like pretty similar, very, very similar. They have the same thing. So I would recommend that you post on both with a similar strategy. We'll talk about a different strategy, but you can automatically post from Instagram to Facebook. So I would highly recommend having both. Facebook, Instagram, Facebook posts, now going to Instagram, awesome. So I love Instagram for podcasting. I also love Facebook for podcasting and Twitter for some podcasts. It just depends on your topic. What words are your audience using to describe themselves? So Erica, what do your clients use to describe themselves? Julie, what do your listeners use to describe themselves? Heather, everyone, what do your audience use to describe yourselves or themselves? Moms in business, perfect. So this is going to be super important when we get into the hashtag portion, but when we have an episode or when we have a post, we want it to seem like we're talking directly to our ideal audience. So women or veterans in business, you're going to want to talk to them, talk to their issues, their pain points, their pleasure points, all of that. Julie, if they're stuck and they need a change, you're going to use those words. Do you feel stuck? Do you feel like you need a change? Here is the answer. That's what they're looking for from each of you. They're looking for an answer. Women who want to grow confidence. So Heather, they may be like, I'm not confident. I am shy. I don't know how to express myself. Teach them how and use the words they use. Jessica, parents who have kids with anxiety. If your child has anxiety, I'm sure you would do anything in your power to make them feel better about just, being out in public or being anywhere. You're going to do anything you can to help your child. And so speak to their pain points and give them an answer. Yes, Jeremy, of course, you can turn on your audio.
Okay, sorry, I hate to steal some time from you, but
oh no, you're totally fine.
My question is this: I think that confirmation bias is a huge concern of mine, and anytime that anyone reaches out to a select group of people to solicit advice, oftentimes the people that give that advice are going to be the ones that are the loudest and not necessarily representative of what would be in your best interest, right? It's not like people are doing. You're not hiring a company to do a study on your audience and what is important to them, right? If you ask that question, you're going to get 5 responses from the people who are most willing to share what's important to them. But to me, that doesn't necessarily mean that that's what's most important to your entire audience, comma, how do you guard against catering to the most vocal at the same time? Thank you.
Yeah, that's a great question, Jeremy. Thanks for bringing that up. So when we think about like our followers and maybe like I think it's like 950 followers on Instagram right now. The way I hear about what they want is, of course, asking them. And like you said, not everyone is going to answer. And Erica, yeah, polls are great, because then they don't even have to say anything. It's just a yes or no question. They're going to answer honestly. Another great way that you can do it is going to find a Facebook group. Going to find Facebook groups full of people who care about your podcast topic. For instance, I use Facebook groups like Podcast Movement Community. If you've heard of that, it's a Facebook group full of podcasters. Or even my group, it's called Espresso Growth for Podcasters, Entrepreneurs, and Industry Leaders. These places are just full of people who want answers and advice. So what I do whenever I'm writing my content is I scroll through these. And this is where people are really going to say their opinions. For instance, I have a course coming out to help people launch their podcasts. And I look up keywords like start a podcast, launch a podcast, and see what people have to say, because they will share their honest opinions there. If you have, audience who's just like super, super not responding to anything that you have to say, send them a message. When you have less followers, this is going to be easier to keep track of once you start growing. So Jeremy, once you start your podcast, if you start a new page for your podcast or use the page you already have, message these people and just connect with them and say something like, hey, thank you so much for the follow. So excited to connect with you. I would love to hear about you or this topic or whatever it may be. And if you invite them to come and give their examples or give their, honest opinions, they will give it to you. You just have to answer that or, invite them to give you those answers. So like you said, yes, some audiences will speak louder than the others, but everyone will share their voice. Everyone will talk to you. You just have to make them feel included. Does that make sense? Is that really the answer to your question? I feel like if you're worried about not getting the right, answers from your audience, at first you may need to assume what they want. And if they don't love what you're sharing, that's when you need to like turn your perspective around and be like, who is following me? Look at their pages. They post about what they care about. Then you can tell. They don't necessarily have to straight out tell you what they want or what they need. You can kind of see from their pages. Let me know if that makes sense. So that's really where this comes in. What's important to them? Understanding what's important to them, you can tell from their pages. Stalk them a little bit. There's no shame in stalking your followers. So, like I said, nurture your audience to keep them coming back. Engaging them is the difference between having a one-time listener and a loyal listener. These are very, very different because a one-time listener will just listen to your podcast from time to time, but a loyal listener will be excited when you have a new podcast episode. I make connections all the time with other podcasters. I'm thinking of this one girl. She has a podcast called Wellness and Wanderlust Podcast. I listen to it like every single time she has a new episode out, and that's because we're friends. We've met each other in this field, and so every time she has a new podcast, I'm like, I need to go listen to that. So there are over 2 million podcasts in the world. Your audience will listen to yours if you invite them and value them and educate them. So this is where we're going to get into hashtags. I'm going to show you some that I use, and then I will, help you in that one-on-one meeting to really tailor it into what you should be using. So the 3 rules I have for you. I could talk about hashtags all day because it's so great for outreach. You must have a public account for your podcast. Should make sense. You need to use at least 5 hashtags. You can use up to 30, but Instagram is changing so much. You can use anywhere between 5, 9, 30, however many. Try a bunch of different numbers. I typically stay around 9 hashtags, and you must switch them up because Instagram does not like it when you use the same hashtag over and over and over. So to execute this is your homework. You need to research your competitors and see what they're using, because if there's a podcast similar to you and they're using hashtags and they're performing immensely well, get some inspiration from them. And then find what your listeners engage with. If you're on Instagram, which this is where this will work, Instagram and Twitter to an extent, see who's engaging with your content. If you have like 5 people that like every single post, click on their profile, click on who they're following, and it should pull up a way that you can see what hashtags they're following as well. Then use those. I can show you after during a one-on-one call if you don't know how to find the hashtags of your followers, but I can help you do that. So hashtags are your missing link to being discovered. So for instance, here are some examples. Your services. I do podcast production, so I use that hashtag from time to time if the post relates to it. Digital marketing. Your niche. So business mentor, travel blogger. These are the 5 topics. Your community, podcasters of Instagram. We are all podcasters of Instagram. This is my favorite hashtag to use. Bloggers of Instagram. Location. I'm located in Seattle, Washington. So I use stuff like Seattle small business, Seattle podcast, Seattle entrepreneurs. Because I love connecting and networking with people near me and also away from me too. Like, I just love networking with everyone. Oh my gosh, how cool. That's crazy. And then general ones like podcast life, podcast coffee, because my brand is espresso, coffee break. So when I sent this to you, it is empty and I want you to fill this out. I want you to list at least 3 for each one. So it could be moms of Instagram or like confidence, be confident, confidence boost, things like that. It could be veteran women, veterans of Instagram. It could be parents of Instagram, women of Instagram, whatever your topic is. Jeremy, I know you talk a lot about climate change, or you want to find your climate change community and connect with them. So now we're into the strategy part. This is where I love helping my clients grow confident. That's a great one, Heather. So what are your short-term podcast goals? What goals do you want to achieve in the next 1 to 3 months? Let me know in the chat. I want to see all of these. First 500 downloads per month, super achievable. And then you want to launch yours. I'm so excited for you to launch your podcast. Long terms is making a living from podcasting. That's perfect. Look at podcasts like the Mindset Mentor. Like, he has 3 podcasts a week, probably making at least 6,000 per episode. At least. I mean, I don't know, but at least 6,000 per episode. So I love creating, connecting, and posting and promoting it. What's a realistic aim? I mean, Heather, if you want to get more clients from your podcast, you could definitely say, I want to get 5 clients from my podcast in the next 3 months. And you could do that. That's a realistic goal. It doesn't always have to be about download numbers or monetary. It can be business goals as well. So be consistent, increase listeners. Courtney, how many listeners do you want to get to? And what does consistency mean to you? Paige, I would like to see consistent listenership from about 2,000 to 4,000 a month. I love that. That's perfect. So your short-term podcast goal is 1,000 a month. Perfect. Long-term, monetize your podcast. How much do you want to make from your podcast? Julie, who is he? The Mindset Mentor. His name is Rob Dial Jr. He is a business coach for coaches. If you haven't heard of his podcast, it's another one that I religiously listen to. His episodes are like 15 minutes long, 3 a week. It's just so good. I just cannot even explain it. His podcast is so good because he gives like wins in each one, which is something you all should think about. The reason his podcast performs so well is because people get real wins in short periods of time. So people want that from listening to podcasts. They want to learn something or win something. Now, not like win like an object, like win mentally, So Jessica, you want to make a living from your podcast. Long-term, bride your coaching business to your podcast, bridge your coaching business to your podcast and monetize it. Perfect. Audrey, you want to launch on February 1st and make money by the end of March. I love that. Keep that goal in mind as you're doing all of your marketing. Jeremy, short term, I want to create a system of efficiency that allows me to create. Long term, teach and learn and focus on great content. No one cares about numbers or downloads or incomes. Perfect. If you don't care about those things, go you, because that's what holds a lot of people back. They're like dedicated to a specific number, but they're not sure how to get there. So consistently 5 to 10K a month, Tara. Courtney, 500 to 1,000 downloads per episode. Julie, you should 100% go listen to him. Let me know what you think. I'm obsessed. Short-term goals is to consistently grow to 1K a month. Audrey and Heather, his name is Rob Dial Jr. the mindset mentor. Go follow him on Instagram. He shares a lot of great things that can be examples for you as well. Long-term, 52 episodes this month. Oh my gosh, that's incredible. All stats trend up each month. New clients, perfect. 52 or 500 downloads. These are all, okay. Amanda, I was like 52 episodes in 1 month, maybe a bit extreme, but I believe in you, you know? I believe in you. Okay, perfect. So now that you have a clear goal, let's reach them through marketing. Your podcast and business should work for you, not take up all your time. So I am going to show you what I do, what I teach my clients to do to streamline their content process, get clear on their promotion schedule, and start seeing their hard work pay off. So now it's time to finish your marketing in 1 day. Monthly and daily goals. So there's a lot of things you need to do monthly that you can do in 1 day that you can easily execute daily. So monthly, I want you to set your goals and intentions for the month. This could be the last day of the month before or the first day of the month. Plan out your interviews and episodes for the whole month. Create graphics, Instagram Reels to promote your podcast. Instagram Reels are an incredible way to grow. A way to think about it is posts will reach a new audience, but they mainly reach the audience that you have. Reels, on the other hand, reach an audience that you don't already have. So that may change the way that you think about it. If you're like, I don't want to show up on video, I would recommend that you do. You know, you don't even have to show your face. You could show what you're doing. You could show examples of, you know, whatever it may be. I post a lot of reel ideas on my Instagram, so you can go and follow me there. A lot of them you don't even have to show your face for. And when I say create reels, don't do it every single day. Dress up nice one day, put on your makeup, do your hair, whatever it may be, and you can just change your shirt a couple times and you can get for the whole month. I do about 8 reels a month, sometimes more, sometimes less. And I batch them all. Exactly, Erica. I batch them all and I just look different in so many ones, but like I just do it all in 1 day. And so then you save them to your drafts and they're ready to post. Same with your graphics. If you have your episodes planned out for the whole month, you can do this all in 1 day. This is what I do. And I do for my clients and I help my clients do. So then utilize a social media scheduler as Later or Planoly. Do you recommend reposting reels to other social media? You definitely could do reels on, you know, you can post it to TikTok, on Facebook. It's great on Instagram, and Instagram and TikTok are competing right now. So if it has the Instagram logo and you put it on Facebook or on TikTok, it's not going to perform as well. Same with the TikTok logo on Instagram. It'll perform okay, but it really won't perform as well as it should if you were posting it, you know, different ones on each. And then a social media scheduler. If you've never heard of this, it will post it for you. You have to schedule it in there. So I use a social media scheduler called Later. I create my graphics and I put them into Later, and then I schedule them all in there. When it's time to post, everything is written, everything is done. I have a creator account, so all I have to do is post, publish. If you have a business account or a personal account, you can go and it publishes it itself. Tell me that's not so easy. You don't have to do anything. You have to create it once a month and it posts for the rest of the month. Daily, what you need to do is post on your feed and story. So if you're using the scheduler, that's already done for you. Share it to your stories. Engage with your followers and listeners through those hashtags. If you have more questions about this, let me know. Engage daily. I do about 10 minutes a day, 10 minutes. And it has grown my Instagram so much. Everyone has 10 minutes. Create interactive posts for your audience to engage with, such as those polls or quizzes, or if in your captions you're asking them a question, have them answer it. Connect with other podcasts in your field, make friends, make connections, share audiences. You can be a guest on their show. You can be a guest on theirs, build that connection. Like Heather and I have different audiences, but we're going live together tomorrow on Instagram. Make those types of connections. And then go to where your ideal audience hangs out. This is that social media platform. So I want you to look at it this way. Pick one day to give yourself at least 2 hours to iron out the details. Get clear and detailed goals. Contact your scheduled interview to confirm, because the worst thing in the world is when you have an interview the last Monday of the month and they cancel. So confirm with them all before. That way you can create your graphics and make sure that they're all right, that you don't have to go back and create them again. And then schedule out your posts monthly. This is all you have to do and you're set for the month. This takes me 2 hours. I've been doing this consistently for at least 6 months. It takes me no time at all, and it makes it so easy. I like to think of it, I actually got this from one of my clients. Her name is Ati Greenspun. She calls Mondays her CEO day. Her CEO day is a day where she works on her marketing, her own business. She irons out those details. Have your CEO day and just, have that mindset of, I'm getting this all done. This is going to take me 2 hours. Because a lot of us that work with clients or, work in corporate or whatever it is, we focus so hard on other people's dreams. We focus so hard on growing other people's podcasts or their business, whatever it may be. Focus on growing yours for at least 2 hours and you will set yourself up for success. Yeah, totally. I can go back to the daily to-dos. If you have any questions about these, let me know. I'm also going to send you all a replay after this. So if you missed anything, you can go back and check. So just post daily on your feed and stories, engage with your followers about 10 minutes a day. You can do more or less, whatever works for your schedule. And to go back, consistency can mean anything to you. Consistency could mean one podcast a month. I just interviewed Gordon Ramsay. No, Gordon Firemark. I was watching a lot of Hell's Kitchen this week. And so Gordon Firemark is the podcast lawyer. He has had his podcast, I think, for 13 years, guys. 13 years. He posts once a month consistently. Consistency can mean anything. 13 years, once a month. Like, it could be anything. You could post once a month, and as long as you're consistent and keep doing it every single month, you are golden. Like, you are totally fine. Okay. So then daily, make sure your scheduled posts are actually posted. Engage with hashtags. If this is hard for you, check out this. It's by Gary Vee. It's called the $1.80 method. I'll send you all a link to this. I think it's like $10 a month. I don't want to go too into it right now because his website really explains it well. But it's called the $1.80 method. Heather, you spend at least about 3 hours per episode, including recording, posting, press kits. I add only intro and don't edit. Does 3 hours per episode feel good to you? Is that like a good, or is it? Because there's probably a way we can streamline that. So we can talk about that, after. Engage with followers and posts, and then post stories and reels, and then network. Networking is my word for 2022. And so that's where I'm really focusing this year. Here's a good outline of what I created for you. If this feels good to you, do it. It makes it super simple. There's just 3 things you need to do each day. Post a photo, post a story, post valuable content. Post a reel, post a story, share valuable content. The same thing every day. Get into a rhythm. Get into that rhythm. This is consistency. An hour is a long time in a busy person's life, so you need to show them that your podcast is worth listening to, and that is through consistency. I've done this webinar a couple times before, but I wanted to add this. So this is special for you guys. This is having a plan for your podcast. This is how I lay it out for myself. Okay. I put December and January. December, I wanted to do 30 posts. So I had 5 podcast episodes, I had 4 quotes, I had 4 educational posts, 5 IGTVs, which is not called IGTV anymore, but in my head it still is. It's just Instagram Live. I do 4 training videos a month in my Facebook group, 2 because it was December, so I post those. Happy holidays, end of year post, New Year's post, done. 7 reels is done. That's 30 posts. That way I can lay it out in a way that I'm like, okay, let me batch this all right now. Let me just do this, done. For January, I have 4 podcast episodes, 4 quotes. These are just like inspirational quotes that I love sharing. 6 educational posts, 3 posts to promote this webinar, 5 IGTVs, 4 espresso trainings, 5 reels, 31 posts, done. Is this hard? Like, does this make sense? Let me know what you think of this, because this makes a lot. This is what I do with my clients every single month. And it really just like really lays it out. Is that for Facebook and Insta or just Insta? So this is just for Instagram, but a lot of these, like my quotes, I post on Facebook. My webinar posts, I post on Facebook. My espresso trainings are on Facebook that I repurpose. Content for the reels, it depends on what I'm promoting that week. So with every podcast episode that I have, I create a reel about that topic. Like last week, I interviewed someone about networking. So I made a networking reel. Before that, I did a legal reel. Like, it just depends on what topics I want to share. This is where the pain points and pleasure points come in, because, you know, like you were sharing before, why people listen to you. That's why, that's the topics of reels. That's what people will engage with. If you have any questions about this, let me know. Here's some effective posts. Audiograms are the best 30 to a minute of your podcast episode that you cut out. You put into this app called Headliner, headliner.app. You create a graphic, and then it's done for you. Episode announcements, keep the branding consistent. I pulled this post from My Favorite Murder because every single episode they post is the same thing, where it's, you know, their logo and then a different photo in the background. Keeps it consistent. If you want to go look at their page, definitely do it, because they have some good marketing on there. Photos of yourself. People want to know who they're listening to. If they're investing an hour plus a week to you, they're going to get nosy and want to know who they're listening to. Don't be afraid to post photos of yourself. I just talked to these 3 girls who had a true crime and historical podcast, and they were like, oh, I don't know what to post. They never posted a photo of themselves. And I said, are you like afraid to post yourself? Like, do you not want to? And they're like, no, we would. I just didn't know that was relevant. It's relevant. It's very relevant. People want to know who you are. And then photos of your guests. This builds credibility for yourself, your guests, and your podcast as a whole. So that is the webinar. If you have any questions, let me know. Thank you so much for joining me today. If you have any questions, put it in the chat. So if you still need help, let's work together. If you need accountability, let's work together. And if you want to take the guesswork out of podcasting and do what actually works, let's work together. I can help you with all of this. This is where I'm an expert in. So I'm looking for just 2 people to help monetize and, you know, grow their podcast over the next 6 months, so I can get my full attention to you. I would, you know, love working with every single podcast out there, but I can't help every single podcast. You know, I want to specialize in helping 2 people. I'm available 24/7 to my clients. So if I took, you know, like 17 podcasts on my plate, oh my gosh, I could not give everyone my full attention. And that's where I love helping people. So I want to change your podcast from a stress to a moneymaker. I want to position you as an expert. I want to do what works, not just the busy work. I want you to streamline this. And I want you to scale and grow your podcast. There's 2 ways to work with me. The first one is working with me, an expert. This is my 6-month one-on-one program where I hold you accountable, coach you on your specific podcast. Like I said, this is very specific to you. This is not group coaching. This is one-on-one, where I invest all of my time into understanding your podcast, your business, all of that. I want you to reach your goals and get you real results, because seeing real results is the most important thing to me. So for $139 a week for 26 weeks, we do one-on-one coaching, we finish your marketing, we create an effective strategy, I hold you accountable, and give you 24/7 support. I help you post, I help you know what to post. Everything will make sense. There will be no guesswork. I will help you grow your podcast, your business, your brand as a whole. I love working with people on my 6-month program because we really build a connection. The next way to work with me, if you're like, Hayleigh, this all sounds great, but I have 0 time on my plate. Like, I just cannot do this by myself. Okay, well, I have another option for you. This is my 6-month done for you program. It includes personalized and quality attention, branded content, and matching your voice and style each month. So I take care of everything for you. I create the bulletproof strategy for you, but I also execute it for you. I create your on-brand social media graphics, post them, write your captions, I edit your podcast, write your show notes, upload your podcast, everything it takes to run a podcast, I do that for you. That one is $250 a week for 26 weeks. Both of these have a discount if you pay in full. And then, during our one-on-one meeting, I have an extra discount for you. So let me know if you're interested in either of those. If you're stuck, lost, or unsure of what to do, it's time for you to get help. You don't have to struggle, because I want you all to have amazing, beautiful podcasts that you're proud of, that's bringing you joy. Podcasts should always be fun. And if it's not, talk to me, because we need to figure out why it's not fun, or why it's too anxious or something like that. So I'm looking for just 2 people to give my attention to, because I want to help you succeed. Here are some testimonials from some of my past clients. I have a ton more on Instagram and Facebook, and I would love to connect with each and every one of you. I will be sending you all emails soon with a link to book with me, as well as this replay. Thank you so much for joining me today. If you have any questions, let me know. You can find me on Instagram or Facebook, and let's just get talking. Thank you so much, guys. I hope you learned a lot from this. All right, I'll talk to you all soon. Thank you.